This just makes me sad, man. The death of the Looney Tunes is upon us. Today, Warner Brothers has removed the entirety of Looney Tunes from Max. You used to be able to watch every single Looney Tunes on here. Not anymore as of today. And this comes after the news that The Day the Earth Blew Up made $3 million this opening weekend domestically. $3 million, man, for the Looney Tunes. Not good, dude. Think about it. Space Jam back in 1996 opened to $27 million that weekend, with Back in Action opening to $9 million. This is just diminishing returns, brother. I'm sad about this. I'm sad that this is what the Looney Tunes have become now, because I used to love them. I used to love them so much as a kid. I had this DVD. I also had the Spotlight collection for Looney Tunes. As a kid, I loved Space Jam. I know it's not great, but I love this movie. I love the commentary with Bugs and Daffy. Back in Action, honestly, is cinema. I think genuinely, this is a fantastic movie. And the Looney Tunes show, that had like Bugs and Daffy as roommates in a house, incredible stuff. This is peak television. Does Warner Brothers just have it out for Looney Tunes now? Like, they're really just sending this whole franchise to die, and it makes me sad. I love these characters, and like, the kids today just don't get it. Like, I know kids today had Bluey. I had Bugs Bunny, dude. That was my guy. What do you think's gonna happen? Do you think Warner Brothers is gonna end up selling off the Looney Tunes franchise soon?
So it looks like there's going to be an entire generation that has no clue that the Looney Tunes exist, as well as Sesame Street. Obviously, currently, there's a lot of children's content on HBO Max. Recently, they just released a Looney Tunes movie starring Daffy Duck and Porky Pig. But none of this stuff was actually promoted because I think they're trying to shelve and get rid of Looney Tunes as a whole. I think the worst thing that happened to children's TV is a lot of the shows that we grew up with, they're being privatized. I mean, we have to remember Cookie Monster, Elmo, these were characters that were supposed to be accessible to basically everyone. But with streaming taking over households, it's a little bit sad that these characters are being put in the back burner. Millennials and early Gen Z grew up with Space Jam. We grew up on syndicated television. We grew up watching some of the best TV, peak, some of the best animation ever to exist. And now it feels like a lot of that stuff isn't being prioritized because they're mostly trying to focus on adult content. Like, look at me in the eye and tell me a John Cena Looney Tunes movie would not go hard. Yeah, David Zaslav literally threw this in the trash. I don't know what plan Warner Bros. Has. I'm not sure if they're gonna license a lot of this content. But the death of children's TV is imminent, and it's really sad.
This might be the most personal episode that I might be doing, but it's also going to be my most favorite episode I'm going to be doing because this is a topic that I love very much and hold dear to my heart. Cartoons, animated cartoons. So let's just simply talk about it, but not just any cartoon or franchise. We're talking about the Looney Tunes. There are many cartoons that I've watched over the years, growing up, and movies and TV shows that have shaped who I am as a person, how I just simply like see the world, my sense of humor, my entertainment. Like, there have just been many forms of media that have shaped me in a good way, not in like a bad way, but like they have brought many good memories, and the Looney Tunes have brought good memories. I was born in the late 2000s. I was born in 2006. I am Gen Z. So I hope that I'm talking to my generation when I say that, most of our parents are like Gen X. So I would hope that you were kind of like getting immersed in like the shows going on in the 90s while also enjoying like the shows that we were getting in our own time. And that's basically my own childhood. My mom and my uncle grew up in the 90s. They are 90s kids, but they also have a good love for like cartoons and like especially like classic cartoons, the golden age of cartoons. Mostly my uncle, because that's the thing that we mostly talk about the most, because we both know our shit when it comes to this topic. And it makes me smile because it's something about cartoons that really does like bring people together, because cartoons, they just simply have a purpose in this life. And we take them for granted so much. And that's just the whole purpose of this episode, because I have learned recently that the classic Looney Tunes cartoons have been removed from Max, HBO Max. This was around after the movie, a new Looney Tunes movie, The Day the Earth Blew Up, and it appeared in theaters, and it did pretty well on Rotten Tomatoes. It had like 87%. I haven't watched the movie because, I don't know. But that's not really going to be like the whole topic of me like talking about the movie. It brought me on to like make this episode because this is just something that I've been seeing happen slowly over the years. I'm only 19, but like I feel like it started to like seep into my mind when I was like maybe 15 or 14 years old. And I didn't really want to believe it because I just love the Looney Tunes so much, because I just felt like they would still persevere. I still do think that, but I really did feel like they wouldn't really be continuing to have these types of problems. And that problem is struggling for relevancy in this day and age. The Looney Tunes have been making us laugh since April 19th, 1930. And these characters have such a rich history and have been a part of American pop culture for almost 100 years, like over 90 years. One of the biggest things is that comes to mind is like boosting war morale in the 40s when World War II was going on. And Bugs Bunny was doing that Any Bonds Today song. Like, I remember, like, I saw a clip about it. I saw a clip on YouTube with him, like, singing Any Bonds Today. Any Bonds Today. It was a catchy song, a little problematic towards the end, but, like, it was a catchy song. And many of its cartoons, like, remain iconic masterpieces of animation, even though, again, like I said, some of them are a huge product of its time, and we're going to be getting more into it later on, because it plays a part into the reason why it's struggling for relevancy. But this franchise gave the Warner Brothers Studios money. This franchise has entertained people for many generations, and it just sucks that after all this time it is still not getting the recognition that it deserves. It's still getting kind of disrespected. Well, not kind of, it is getting disrespected by their studio, and no one is seeing like the obvious like gold that's like in front of us. It's just ashy of Warner Brothers to do this. Oh Lord. Another like thing that like I did learn too was the fact that an old building that did like make an old animation building that produced its old cartoons, building 131, it's going to be torn down this year. Now, the building did close in either 1964 or 1969, but it's been closed for many decades. And the demolition for this building has been in the works for 6 years, and this year they're finally going to go through with it, because they're going to be like building like another like base camp for like the many HBO shows that are going to be shooting on the Warner Brothers lot. They could have just simply like find somewhere else to like build that little base camp. Like, I feel like they could have just found somewhere else, because that building does have a lot of history. It feels very disrespectful to like literally everyone, because the hard work that literally everyone did at Warner Brothers Animation to literally create all those Looney Tunes cartoons, because there are a lot of classic Looney Tunes cartoons. These two factors, the deleting the cartoons off of HBO Max, the tearing down of that building, it feels like a huge insult to every single animator and the voice actors who worked on those cartoons. Because no one is going to be able to like see much of those classic cartoons beyond just YouTube. And not all of them were on YouTube. Only a few of them were on YouTube before HBO Max appeared. I know this because I did watch a few of the Looney Tunes cartoons on YouTube, but not every single one of them. Because not all of the Looney Tune cartoons are on YouTube. At best, there's at best I feel like it's like 100 or like 50. But like, even then, it's not really all of them. So they won't be able to like see all that history, all that entertainment. Because so many people did work on those cartoons, and 3 directors that I'm thinking about right now is Chuck Jones, Bob Clampett, Friz Freeling. I hope I said that name right. Those are the 3 directors that do come to mind that have directed and helped create those cartoons, and other animators who should be credited who worked on those cartoons. And especially no one will get to see the brilliance of my personal hero, Mel Blanc, the man of 1,000 voices, who voiced almost all of the Looney Tunes. And it wasn't just him that voiced the Looney Tunes, it was Arthur Q. Bryan, the original voice of Elmer Fudd, June Foray, who voiced Granny, and the Witch, there's not a whole lot of female characters in the Looney Tunes, but those three voice actors were the main voices for those cartoons. And everyone really just worked so hard on those cartoons. Everyone did. It was a team effort. No new generation will be able to understand the rich history. I don't know, they'll just won't be able to understand now. They just won't. Back to my point, they really did have been struggling for relevancy for a while. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that it was the transition to television. This is the part where you're just going to have to humor me, because I'm going to be talking about these cartoon characters as if they're as if they're literally real in the world. I'm just going to be talking about them as if they're completely real. So this is where you humor me. See, the transition to golden age cartoons to television, it began in the late 50s and 60s as theater animation lost popularity to the newer medium, and major studios like Walt Disney and Warner Brothers began producing animated series for television. And it often employed techniques that limited animation to create cost-effective programming, and this shift led to the creation of popular Saturday morning cartoons and the rise of new animation studios like Hanna-Barbera, where we got Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?, the Flintstones, the Jetsons, and etc. But this is where you humor me, because I'm going to be talking about them as if they're real people. You see, Disney is always the innovative company. It always was, Walt Disney always was 3 steps ahead. It was always a constant rivalry with Disney and other animation studios to always be on top, to always have the audience's attention. And yes, it's just simply business. When you're in businesses like TV, animation, YouTube, whatever creative field, when you're taking it more seriously, you do want as much eyes and ears as possible to your work. You do. And sometimes it's going to become a competition to see who's going to be on top. It's just going to be like a dick measuring contest. It's like which cartoons are going to be better. But Disney, being the ever so innovative process that it is, like it was always 3 steps ahead as the other studios. So the transition to television, it was kind of almost seamless for Disney. There might have been some bumps along the edges, but like it wasn't that as like an awkward shift to this new phase of like television. I like to think of this shift from like theater to television for the Toons as like their own personal Great Depression. I say this because let's think of it like this. It would be pretty hard for them to adjust to this new thing of like television and making cartoons in limited animation form for television, because all they know is like creating cartoons for theater release, just like as they would like any other human actor acting in a movie for theater release. Because animated cartoons used to be shown in movie theaters as much as like the news also used to be shown in movie theaters, along with the pictures that came from like other studios, like let's say MGM or like Universal. All that used to be shown in movie theaters. When television started to become a thing, I imagine these characters thinking that it's not really going to be that much of a big deal. That like they'll still be able to like maintain their audience. They won't struggle because TV at that time was a fad. Like it was just like a trend. Like they weren't really like going to be taking it that seriously to heart, because like when new things come around, sometimes we do think it's just simply newfangled nonsense, to be honest. Because TV at that time, most people thought it was just simply a trend. Like it won't really like last that long. It's not like radio or like movie theaters. Like people are gonna like, people might just get tired of it. But like obviously people did not get tired of it. And what you know, Disney is far ahead and the Looney Tunes kind of like lagged behind. So, but even though they were kind of like lagging behind, that didn't mean like they did not like produce anything for them to like appear on television. They did have shows to at least like broaden their audiences a little bit more. For instance, they did create the Bugs Bunny show, where they would repackage old Warner Brothers cartoons along with new animation and the in-betweens. And this carried on for like many years in like the 60s. And they did it again with the Bugs and Tweety show, which was like the same thing. And since we're on the subject of like Disney and Warner Brothers, okay, let me just like talk about it a little bit more in depth. Disney and Warner Brothers have been in a long-standing rivalry for many years, the biggest department being animation. Like I said, Disney was always so innovative and it was always creating beautiful animation films and like creating very memorable characters such as Mickey Mouse. You know, we all know Mickey Mouse. He's the most recognizable cartoon character on Earth. Because of Mickey's popularity, many other studios tried to produce as many copycats of Mickey Mouse as they can. Warner Brothers was the biggest contenders with like, I guess like one character that comes to mind is like, I think I remember it was Buddy, and I think Foxy. I think that's the one. But they did produce many copycats. But then the Looney Tunes came along. Every single thing about the Looney Tunes is completely set up to be the anti-Disney. Disney is very polished. Mickey Mouse is very polished. Disney has always produced very beautifully animated films, always being very innovative and like always breaking new grounds, because Disney did break new grounds. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was like the first full-length movie animated film. Most animated films had like 5 to 7 minutes. Nowadays, like animated cartoons have 22 minutes. they have a 20-minute runtime or 11-minute runtime, depending on the studio. So what was originally considered impossible is now possible because of Disney, to an extent. Because, well, it is because of Disney. Because, like, Disney always broke new grounds, and animation was always seen as, like, a trend, too. But now, animation is seen as a real thing. It's still not really as taken as much. It's still being downplayed sometimes. I do see people trying to downplay animation, and animation is not always the easiest to get into. But being someone who is into animation, who has like taken animation classes, it's still like a pretty cool like field, because it's always ever changing. It's always like innovative. It's not stale, because it's always breaking new grounds. Especially like some people like to debate over 2D and like 3D animation. I think like both mediums are good. But anyway, we'll talk about that. Like, that's like another episode topic. Disney is very polished and innovative, but like everything about the Looney Tunes is set up to be the anti-Disney in almost every single way possible. For example, if we're going to be doing this, I'm going to have to like compare Mickey Mouse to Bugs Bunny. Mickey is very polished. He's the nice guy. Bugs Bunny, he's a troll. The Looney Tunes specialize in comedy over animation. The animation is just as impressive in the Looney Tunes, but like comedy is the Looney Tunes. The Looney Tunes are funny. The Looney Tunes are very edgy. They're fast-paced comedy. They're slapstick. They're mostly like their wits, because the Looney Tunes are quick-witted. They really are, especially Bugs Bunny. And this will go on to be like one of the most defining factors of this franchise, because with everything that Disney was, the Warner Brothers were not. Because the Looney Tunes were not afraid to be edgy and be funny, to just like raise a few eyebrows. You never would see Mickey Mouse doing drag. That's Bugs Bunny's thing. Bugs Bunny became like a whole like drag icon, with him constantly dressing up as women to trick hunters and just his enemies. And this might be seen as like a problem with like the cross-dressing thing, but like I think it's not that much of a problem because of how it was treated. When Bugs was in drag, he wasn't presented as very ugly. He wasn't presented as a way. It wasn't really like to completely humiliate his opponents. It was just simply to like throw them off. That's just how I'm looking at it. Bugs was presented as very desirable when he was in drag. The confidence, the overall like buffoonery like these men will go over to impress the character that Bugs has dressed up as. It was pretty good. Like, it wasn't that demeaning to people. It wasn't like I didn't see it as very demeaning. Like, it would be the context, like, I mean, like, on the surface, it would be seen as problematic to just simply be dressing up. I don't know. It would be seen as problematic, but, like, the context of it and how it was treated, I think it was pretty good. I mean, like, Disney is very accommodating to conservatives. Disney breaks new ground, is breaking new grounds, like, to this day, with its constant like first gay characters or whatever. It's not a competition as to like which tune is better, but like when you do compare Mickey Mouse to Bugs Bunny, there is an obvious difference in how both of these characters operate. But with all being said, I've mentioned how, yes, the whole transition to theater, to television, would naturally be like a shock to these old timers. Not to disrespect them, but like they are a product of their own time. But that didn't mean that they were just simply gonna be in the it wasn't gonna be all doom and gloom, or like it wouldn't feel that hopeless forever. Because in the 90s, they did have a comeback. Even though they had some like many setbacks with, again, the transition to television not really going well to an extent, producing some failed cartoons. Yes, it did have the Bugs Bunny show, but it wasn't really, I don't think it drew that much audience. I think it did draw some audience with the Saturday morning cartoons, because Saturday morning cartoons did become a thing. And it still is a thing with like channels like MeTV. But another thing that was a huge setback for them was Mel Blanc's death, because he died in 1988. And this man did voice almost all of the Looney Tunes. So like now their future was looking a little bit bleak for a minute, because like who was going to be doing the voices now? They're speechless, and it feels like only one man could do it all, and that was Mel Blanc. Because who was going to be, like, no one knew at the time. But fortunately, there have been some voice actors who did try to channel the Looney Tunes to the best of their abilities. And one of those voice actors who I think, like one of the voice actors that I think do at least a good job of like maintaining the essence of the Looney Tunes have been Jeff Bergman, Joe Lasky, Bob Bergman. I can't think of any other names. Those are the actors that come to mind. And Jeff Bergman and Joe Lasky definitely have done a good job, because they both have voiced Bugs and Daffy. And I think they preserved that memory well enough to at least get them through the 90s, to let them have the comeback that they did need at the time. Because like, as much as people were watching the Bugs Bunny show, people were kind of forgetting the Looney Tunes. So the 90s came at a good time for them to have that comeback. They had like comebacks with shows like Tiny Toons Adventures and their Looney Tunes equivalent, their Looney Tunes equivalent, the Animaniacs, that mirrored their same style of like slapstick humor and their witticisms. And they also had other films that they had released in films, like Box Office Bunny, Carrot Blanca, a parody of Casablanca, and Attack of the Aliens. I think that was a short that they did too. And even though like the films that that those shorts appeared in, they didn't do well in the box office, there was like they're just back on screen again. People were seeing them on screen again. Their biggest comeback came in Space Jam, when they appeared with Michael Jordan, and the storyline was basically focused on him saving the Looney Tunes from aliens, like enslaving them through a basketball game. Because in the movie, Michael Jordan retired from basketball and to like play baseball, and it's not going well. So these aliens called the Dorks, I think that's their name, or I think it was Moron Mountain. I think I don't know. Like it was either like the aliens' names were either like Dork or Morons. So they needed some new attractions. So their boss told them to like get the Looney Tunes. So so they were trying to like enslave the Looney Tunes, like work as like theme park attractions, and they need Michael Jordan to save them, because they challenged them to a basketball game, and they stole like the other famous basketball players' like skills, and now they turn into Monstars. if you get it, you get it. That's like the point of that's kind of like the point of the movie. But like the movie did pretty well. They did well with like advertisement. But like, needless to say, the '90s was like a huge comeback, and the Looney Tunes were back in people's screens, and people were like loving them still. This kind of like transitioned into my timeline, like the 2000s and the 2010s. The Looney Tunes tried to still hold on to relevance in the new millennium, and they did that with varying results. Some good, some bad, and then there's just some that are just like for a moment there in the 2000s, they were on a high through their popularity in the 90s. They were on a high, and they did continue to have some small success. They continued the success from the Space Jam movie with the movie Looney Tunes Back in Action, which I have watched. I do remember watching that the most growing up. I'm a lover for hybrid animation. It amazes me the most, but like that is another episode topic. But anyway, Looney Tunes Back in Action was a pretty interesting concept of like it was like I watched it like the other day for nostalgic reasons, and I think it was a pretty good movie, all things considered. And it was starring Brendan Fraser. I think it was like Julia and then Steve Martin. The movie mostly centers around like Daffy getting fired from Warner Brothers, and him and Brendan Fraser's character are trying to like save Brendan Fraser's dad because his dad is a spy. And then Bugs and Julia tag along, and then they try to like stop Steve Martin's character from like getting the blue monkey to like turn everybody on Earth into monkeys. A very loony plot, which is very on brand because they are the Looney Tunes. But even though like it did well with critics to an extent, it still bombed in the box office, and it still made Warner Brothers not want to like create movies for theatrical release related to the Looney Tunes because of that box office bomb with Back in Action. Even though like the movies they were releasing were bombing in the box office, like the Looney Tunes did have some success in the 2000s with straight to DVD movies like Bah Humdug, like a whole like rendition of like The Christmas Carol with Daffy being like in a leading role and Bugs Bunny being like in a supporting role. And they had like TV shows in the 2000s, shows like Duck Dodgers based on like the 1953 cartoon Duck Dodgers in the 24th and a half century. And it was basically just starring Daffy, Porky Pig, and Marvin the Martian, as like Daffy plays like Duck Dodgers, as Daffy Duck plays Duck Dodgers, like a superhero or like a space hero. I've watched it in the past. I haven't watched it like religiously, but like it wasn't bad actually. Like I don't think the show was bad, but like it lasted for 3 seasons. Like it was good enough to last for like three seasons. It lasted from 2003 to 2005. And then like another attempt, it was like a mixed attempt for relevancy in the 2000s, was a show called Lunatics Unleashed, where descendants of the Looney Tunes had superpowers in Acme Metropolis. I've heard of the show over the years, and yesterday actually I gave it a try. Like I watched a few minutes of the show, and I mean it's okay. It's not bad, but I don't know, I just wasn't really vibing with it that much of it because like it was obvious, like it was, I feel like they were obviously trying to like ride on the success of like other superhero movies. I feel like that's what Warner Brothers was trying to do because like they have like successful superhero movies, and I feel like they were trying to ride off of the success of like the Justice League animated series and it was also giving Teen Titans, because like Teen Titans was airing in like was airing in 2003, and it ended in 2005 too. So I feel like it was a mixture of both. I feel like that's basically what Lunatics was unleashed. It was Justice League and Teen Titans mixed together in like Looney Tune format, basically, because it had descendants of like Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Coyote and the Roadrunner, Lola, Bunny, and then the Tasmanian Devil. But they just gave them different names. And they're similar personality traits, so basically all that jazz. But like it wasn't like a bad show. I don't know. I just wasn't really vibing with Lunatics Unleashed. But maybe I just need to like watch it again. So even though like the Lunatics Unleashed show was kind of like, it had like a mixed response with like fans of the franchise, they still in the 2010s they did make a good they did make a good comeback with this adaptation of like the show. And this is actually like my favorite Looney Tunes like format, like my favorite Looney Tunes like show that I still watch religiously. Well, not religiously, but I used to watch it pretty religiously when I was younger, but now I watch it like sometimes, like on and off. But I still love this version of the Looney Tunes so much. And that is the Looney Tunes show. The Looney Tunes show showed Bugs and Daffy living in the suburbs in what looked like I think it was California or like Los Angeles. But I liked how like they made them roommates. I liked how we got to see as if they were like they had like as it was like if we were like seeing their personal lives. It was like it felt like something that they were trying to do with like the Muppets at Disney. The Looney Tunes show did draw in a good new audience because they did transition to Cartoon Network, and that's what the Looney Tunes show did air on. I don't remember watching it while it was like actively like airing on TV, but I do remember mostly watching clips or like watching full episodes on YouTube. And now it's on YouTube, and I have bought both seasons like 4 years ago, like in 2021, so I can like watch the show again because I was like missing the show so much. And like all like the old channels I was like watching the episodes on were like gone at this point, and they still are gone at this point. But like I was watching, I don't know, I just like watching the show so much. I mostly liked how they added in all of the Looney Tune characters as to like have their own personal lives, and how they did blend in like the old classic Looney Tunes elements into the show. Like let's say like one of the things that I did like the most was like the Merry Melodies. Like I remember like a song Giant Robot Love, and like in the song We Are in Love by like Lola Bunny. I do like this version of Lola Bunny. It's a very like, I mean like it's a very like it's a better version of her than it was in like Space Jam, because like in Space Jam Lola Bunny was kind of like treated as like a sex object, and like she was like no, but it's not like she didn't have a personality in Space Jam. But I really did feel like in the Looney Tunes show they really did give Lola Bunny a personality in the show, and it was very funny, it's very kooky, it's very loony. And Kristen Wiig, who voiced Lola Bunny, did a great job at voicing Lola and just like capturing all of her like quirkiness, and how she and Bugs do make a very interesting couple. And I do like how Bugs, I don't know, I mostly just like how like the Looney Tunes, like Bugs' relationship with his other like Looney Tunes do bring out they do bring out different sides of like Bugs Bunny. Like for example, Bugs is always used to like having the upper hand. Like their personalities would shift in the classic Looney Tunes cartoons based on who was directing them. Like let's just say Clampett's take on Bugs Bunny, he was very more unhinged. Bugs Bunny in those cartoons was very unhinged. He didn't always like have the upper hand. But in Chuck Jones's version of Bugs, and that's the version that like a lot of people will remember the most, and that's the version that that Warner Brothers has stuck with, was Chuck Jones's version of Bugs and Daffy. Was Bugs Bunny always having the upper hand, always being the rascally rabbit that he is, always outsmarting everyone else. But in Clampett's take of Bugs Bunny, this particular dynamic between another Looney Tune character is something that needed to be seen later on in the Looney Tunes show. His relationship with Cecil Turtle. Cecil Turtle is basically, they're on the same wavelength. They're both trolls. Bugs Bunny's a troll. Cecil Turtle is also a troll. Cecil can play Bugs' game. Like, he knows the games that Bugs can play. And he outbests him. He's Bugs' like proper match. Like, sure, Elmer Fudd might be a worthy adversary, but like, let's be honest, like, people who are true fans of the Looney Tunes, I feel like they would know Bugs' true adversary, his true kind of like equal when it comes to his own playing field of like trolling people and like being kind of like an ass to other people, it would be Cecil Turtle. Cecil can play the game just like Bugs, and he can low-key do it a little better than him. And I like to see Bugs kind of like get a little bit of a taste of like how he trolls others too. But often, like, when he does troll others, it's mostly like a reaction rather than just him just simply being an ass. Because like, it's just simply like him defending himself. But like, I do like it when I do see Bugs get bested, because it shows that even Bugs, as smart as he is, as sarcastic that he is, like, even he can meet his own match. Someone else can play his game a little bit better than him. That's just it. That's just how I see it. I also liked how in the Looney Tunes show, how Bugs and Daffy's relationship is just simply more nuanced. It's more explored. I feel like they work the best as like roommates. They're best friends, obviously, but like, it's nice to hear them say it sometimes. It's nice to hear them acknowledge that their relationship is complex and they are like best friends, even though like they have been like working together for like over like many like decades. And even though you would think that the relationship can sour, they are good friends, even though their jobs are set up for them to like be completely against each other. And I do like that Bugs and Daffy in the show are genuinely best friends and the occasional like enemies, which keeps in mind of the constant like push and pull, or like the constant like rivalry within these characters, because that's what Bugs and Daffy are. They are best friends, and they are the occasional rivals, but they are mostly best friends. And like best friends, they do like to, start some shit with each other. I like how they just, I don't know, their humor meshes, like they just mesh well. Their humor is golden. Like their dynamic, like the dynamic in the repertoire and like the repertoire between these two is something of animation classic, because Bugs and Daffy's dynamic is just something that, think of like Abbott and Lou Costello. You might not know who Abbott and Lou Costello is, but like Abbott and Lou Costello, they are a comedy duo, and they would constantly like try to like confuse their words and misunderstandings, and it would like get a laugh at the same time. But like, think of it like that. And I think that's how like Rabbit Season and Duck Season was formed from, but it's kind of different, but like, it's like that. And they are a perfect comedy duo, in my opinion. And their dynamic is something of animation history to study, because there's just something about these two that they should both be equal stars in the Warner Brothers family because they both contributed huge amounts to the Warner Brothers success. And they are both as equal faces of like the Looney Tunes in general. Well, also Porky Pig, because Porky Pig is obviously just as much as an important figure to the Looney Tunes, because like who else is gonna go, "That's all, folks"? Like, that's just so iconic to me. Like, Porky Pig is also iconic. All these characters are just as important as any other Golden Age cartoon character, and they should be given their flowers. That's the whole purpose of this episode, just to simply remind everybody that they deserve respect. They did have like some other like small like successes going like throughout the mid 2010s, with Rabbit on the Run, which was also kind of like a straight to DVD movie. And another like huge project in like the 2020s and 2021, they did make another Space Jam 2 sequel with LeBron James. And I watched that movie too, and personally, like, I really just simply like the first Space Jam better. I don't really feel that much for like Space Jam 2 now that I'm thinking about it. I don't really feel that much for it. It wasn't bad, but it was just sometimes there shouldn't be, even though Space Jam 2 probably had like a mixed response to an extent, they were working on some other projects, and this is another form of like low-key disrespect because they were working on a musical. I remember this news because I'm subscribed to a channel who gives updates on like animated cartoons, and y'all like subscribe to like, I think it was like Dave Lee like Wade, I think that's his name. I think that's the channel's name. But like, he was mostly like giving updates on this movie, and I do remember him talking about this. But like, Warner Brothers was gonna be making like a whole musical about Bugs Bunny and his leaving of the spotlight. It was called Bye Bye Bunny, a Looney Tunes musical. And it was gonna be like the first Looney Tunes musical. The storyline was gonna be, after starring in a long-running Broadway smash production, Bugs Bunny decides it's time to live life as a regular rabbit. But as Daffy Duck attempts to step into the lead role, he is kidnapped by an obsessive fan. And that storyline did seem kind of like loony enough for the Looney Tunes. It still never really like went completely like well into production. I don't know exactly what happened, but it was just simply canceled. And the only work that we even have like of this project was just simply the cover and the song called "Why Do I Got to Be Bugs Bunny." I listened to it, and it's a pretty interesting song. But it does like present another point. It made me constantly like question, like, why is this happening? Like, why are the Looney Tunes just struggling with relevancy? Because it's been happening for a while now, and it had hits and misses, and nothing really stuck. What's happening? Like, what is particularly happening? And one of the things that did come to mind when thinking about this was streaming services. And they kind of did ruin the Looney Tunes, because obviously they were deleted from a streaming service, and they are mostly focusing on like new shows. But like, streaming services have been a blessing to an extent, but they have quickly become a curse from, constantly like having constant, like, I don't know, like from having many plans that like slowly bankrupt you, and like having certain original shows that are not even like that good in the first place, but like, I don't know, but like, a lot of these streaming services have been producing very, I'm gonna like be nice when I say this, like it's sort of like it, like they kind of do have like they do have good shows, good original shows, but like sometimes they do have some half-baked shows. Like the most I'm thinking about is Disney Plus. Like with all the Disney content that we love, not all of the old Disney shows that like we liked are on Disney Plus. Like, why isn't House of Mouse on Disney Plus? Like, that was a thing in the 2000s. Like, people who grew up watching, I mean, like a lot of people who grew up in the 2000s, like remember watching House of Mouse. I grew up in the mid 2000s, so I only like knew House of Mouse when I was like maybe like 8 or 9, and I was like watching clips or like as much videos as I could find on YouTube. So I would have liked to like see House of Mouse on Disney Plus. So a lot of streaming services who like promised on like preserving like old like content on their streaming services, they're not really, they just kind of like they didn't really like follow through with that. And it did show when again HBO Max deleted the classic Looney Tunes from like when Warner Brothers deleted the classic Looney Tunes cartoons from HBO Max, and it did show. It did kind of show. But another reason I'm thinking about is why the Looney Tunes is kind of like struggling with relevance, and I mentioned this earlier, how they are a product of their time. And it's the fact that some of their characters were kind of like faced with like cancel culture and political correctness of their characters. Again, the Looney Tunes, like any other Golden Age cartoon character, are a product of their time. It's not an excuse, it's just simply an explanation, and we shouldn't really be surprised that like they showed the things that they showed back then in their cartoons. Like it was okay. It wasn't okay, and a lot of it was due to like ignorance to the topic, and sometimes it was like normalizing these things. But like we really should be like side-eyeing the people behind these characters, because like getting completely angry at these characters, it feels redundant because it's like they're not real. So we're kind of like misdirecting our anger towards cartoon characters when we really should be like talking to these people who directed these cartoons. Like, hey, like, bro, like, what is this? Like, what's going on here? The character is like, I guess like one particular character that did experience some canceling, that did like suffer from cancel culture, is Pepe Le Pew. So I mentioned that Space Jam did have a sequel in 2021, and Pepe Le Pew was in the first Space Jam, and he was on the team. He didn't have a lot of screen time, but his presence was noticeable. But he was absent from the film, and this was due to controversy over his depictions of his character over the years. What I looked up, and this is what it pulled up, but like people have said like his character is kind of like controversial because like his cartoons normalized rape with his chase scenes with like Penelope Pussycat. And I guess like let me just give you like an overview of like these types of cartoons. Like a lot of like Pepe Le Pew's cartoons focused on how Pepe was a chaser, and he would always be chasing people who he thought was a skunk, and it was usually like either a male cat or a female cat. And he would really be like very like persistent within his chases when he was chasing these characters. Always kind of like invading personal space, kind of like kissing them without really like consent. And when these particular episodes with Penelope Pussycat, I can see what they meant with the fact that they were kind of like normalizing that this type of behavior was kind of like okay, because like some kids who might be watching these classic cartoons might think it's like okay to like chase people that they are interested in, like literally like run after them. That's what I meant, like run after the people that they're interested in and basically like grab them like that and like just kiss them. Like even though it's just simply set up for comedy and it shouldn't be taken like that seriously. We shouldn't really be like leaving it up to like cartoons to like raise our children. And we should really just be like, really be the adults here and just simply like tell our kids, as if I got kids, but like whatever. Basically, just simply be the adults and just simply like, you know, like tell your kids like not to like watch these certain types of cartoons because it might not be that appropriate for them to watch. That's kind of like what I'm saying. But it did mirror to an extent of like the attitudes back then of like men treating women as sex objects in a more threatening way back then. New audiences who were watching the Looney Tunes were kind of like seeing this behavior kind of being problematic, and it is problematic, and people were just simply like waking up to the iffy things about Pepe's cartoons. Not saying that he's like a literal like sex offender or a literal rapist, because I can't really like say that he is, because like he's a toon, so it's just his cartoons were just simply problematic. To be honest, like the only offensive things that I really do feel like were there in the classic Looney Tunes cartoons was like the constant, like I think it was just the blackface. Because as much as I liked that Any Bonds Today song, like Bugs Bunny and like appeared in like blackface and like that's like the thing I just did not like about that video. It was the blackface. But people thought it was like funny at the time to like do minstrel and just like make fun of like black people and like in cartoons, and it was just like racist, ignorant, and just I don't know, it was just racist. But like that's like the main problematic thing that I could find in like the classic Looney Tunes cartoons. And some people have also said that Bugs Bunny has also done like inappropriate cultural like stereotypes in his old cartoons, and like I said before, product of its time, a huge product of its time. It's not an excuse, it's just simply an explanation, and I'm not really that surprised that like the animators didn't really think it was like anything to be concerned or like worried about. But nonetheless, to kind of like close out why I think that, I guess like to close this out, I guess we have to like look at the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is animation these days is going through a very rough patch. I've been noticing this for a minute. When I say going through a rough patch, I'm meaning that not all of the cartoon characters that we loved growing up might not get that same love with new generations. If some of you guys played the game Epic Mickey, you might know what I'm talking about, but like again, this is where you humor me again, because I'm going to be talking about these characters as if like they're real people. But if we humor the fact that Wasteland, a place for forgotten tunes, is real, it might be a possibility that somewhere in the future, maybe not today, and definitely not tomorrow, but someday in the future, the Looney Tunes might end up in Wasteland. They will be forgotten. And some of the old classic cartoon characters, like older than them, have already been forgotten by the general public. Like Felix the Cat is almost kind of like forgotten. Like not a lot of people remember Felix the Cat. Like no one my age will know Felix the Cat, obviously. But like my parents might remember Felix the Cat. I definitely know that my Nana loved Felix the Cat. And I think like other family members might remember Felix the Cat, but like characters like that have already been forgotten from existence. Oswald the Lucky Rabbit has almost been forgotten for a huge period of time, before Epic Mickey, and even then, to this day, like, not a lot of people know this character. This, again, is like a common fear of tunes. One line that I'm thinking of when I was like writing this outline for this episode is when it's a line from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Roger Rabbit said that a tune's purpose in life is to make people laugh. And that is true to an extent, but also I hate how we can easily take these characters for granted. I just hate how we take these characters for granted because, like, even though they're technically not exactly real, they're still real because they have produced many good memories for us. They are created by a large team, and they are brought to life by actors who have embodied the role to make their character as believable as possible, as if they're a real full-fledged 3D person when like most of these characters are in 2D. And that's an amazing feat. So I feel like we should be sympathizing with the struggle of them not being able to like stay relevant, because with the new mediums of like animation coming to the forefront, with indie animation being more prevalent and like rising, while studio animation is kind of like it's barely hanging on by a thread. It is kind of like concerning, like where would these characters end up in like 2090? Will people still remember the Looney Tunes? Like, will people know "What's Up, Doc" ever again? Like, will people know the theme? Like, will these new generations of people remember the Looney Tunes? Will their memories still be kept alive, or will they just be slowly fading out? And the reality of the situation is, like, the Looney Tunes are cartoon characters of a bygone era, and there's only so much room for, like, golden age cartoon characters to still have the public's attention. And that is like a sad reality to me, because like they all should deserve their flowers. They all should be deserving of like the respect and the admiration of like everyone around the world, because like I hate that people kind of like downplay the impact that cartoon characters like have on the world, because like cartoon characters have like continued to entertain us for many years. They have continued to entertain many generations of people. Animation is like the greatest invention. Like, it's one of the like best inventions like ever. But yeah, there's only so much room for certain golden age cartoon characters to still have the public's attention. Mickey Mouse will never be forgotten, but the same like cannot be extended to Bugs or Daffy, Porky, Yosemite, Foghorn Leghorn, Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, Sylvester the Cat, Tweety Bird, the Witch, Granny. Like, will all this sentiment be extended to these cartoon characters? Like, will that same attitude be said for them? Because obviously no one is ever going to forget Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, Minnie Mouse, Clarabelle, Pete, Pluto. They're never going to forget these characters. But I can't really say that's going to be the same for them, because animation, I'm saying, is it's always going to be like a competition, and the public's opinion, still having their attention, is going to be like a forever constant battle in Toontown. But to try to like close out this, even though they are still like they're kind of like they're struggling with relevance at the moment, and even though the movie The Day the Earth Blew Up did great on Rotten Tomatoes, and I feel like it did do great I feel like it did do great in the box office too, even though that they're kind of like struggling at the moment, and they did have a good triumph. They did have a win with the ratings of like the day the Earth blew up. The Looney Tunes are not gone just yet. They're not washed up cartoon characters, and they deserve to be remembered forever and ever. And I hope when I'm gone, that people will still be able to recognize Bugs Bunny as much as they would recognize Mickey Mouse, because they deserve it. They are a part of our childhood, our parents' childhood, many other people's childhood. They just have contributed. They have contributed to animation and just like pop culture in many ways. They're almost 100 years old. They just contributed so much. I don't know. I just love them so much. But I guess in order to fix it, I really do think that maybe the Looney Tunes need a better marketing strategy to market them to like new audiences, because even though they did have like some new formats with like the Looney Tunes cartoons to return to their to return to their roots, I do think they do need more people on their team to really expand them, to like get them to really like get new generations to see them. That's kind of what I think. But like, I'm not really like a marketing person, but like, that's just my thoughts and opinions. But anyway, that's kind of all I have for today. Yeah, so thank you for like humoring me on the Looney Tunes. This is the most personal episode that I've ever like done. But yeah, that's kind of all I have for today. So thank you for listening to Let's Discuss. You can find the podcast on Spotify, anywhere you stream podcast. You can find you can like follow the podcast on Instagram and TikTok at Let's Discuss Podcast _ all lowercase. You can follow me, Nick.Marshall02, all lowercase. And it's been a nice talk. It's been a nice talk. I don't know the situation for the Looney Tunes in the future, but like, we can only, for lovers of animation, we can just only hope and pray that they'll just get through this. I hope that the Looney Tunes will get through this. And they just really just need more people on their team to like make sure that their memory stays alive. But anyway, that's kind of all I have for today. But yeah, thank you for like listening if you got this far, and we'll talk next time. It's been a good talk. Really, it really has been a good talk. Okay. We'll talk later. All right. Bye.